I'm Carrie.
I'm Tony, and we are.
Two cranky creatives.
This podcast is brought to you by the Graphics Gang, our online community you can find at patreon.com/graphics gang. Paid members can also watch many of the unedited podcast video recordings.
Hey, Carrie. So, what are we cranky about this time?
I can tell from your tone of voice that you're extra cranky today, as am I, because we're cranky about tariffs.
Yes,
Wah, wah.
the T word, tariffs. Oh my gosh. So, listeners, we are coming to you with this bonus episode outside of our regularly scheduled programming to talk about tariffs. Yes.
Very newsworthy. It had to be done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're starting to feel the effects, right? So, Carrie, and I'm going to try to name check. We did get some feedback from a lovely listener that sometimes it's hard to tell us apart.
Yeah. So I will say right now, if it helps, this is Carrie talking.
And this is Tony talking.
I guess we sound too similar, but
yeah, well, I don't know. We're both 50 and half Italian. Maybe that has something to do with it. Who knows?
And cranky.
And cranky.
That's sarcastic. Oh God.
Why do you want to kick off? I can tell my story. You tell your story. How do you want to do it? You want to kick off?
I'll start because I don't want to forget to say this.
Okay.
I am going to start by saying that I am not an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a political pundit. I am not a CPA. Neither am I an economist. So all the opinions that I and Tony are giving are opinions of artists living in the new world of tariffs.
Here,
I just wanted to, I didn't want to forget that.
No, thank you for saying that, Carrie. That was needed. Very much a disclaimer. Everything we're saying is our own.
Our own opinion, yes. So,
yeah, and I'm just before you go, also for listeners, this episode will be maybe a little bit more raw, maybe a little. It's definitely uncut, but we're here. We're here to talk about it. So go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah. So tariffs. So if you are an artist of any kind, a freelancer, a graphic designer, an illustrator, a painter, surface pattern designer, whatever you are doing, and I'm sure, freelance photographer and all kinds of things. In this day and age, right now, here we are at the end of April 2025, and the tariffs are starting to affect everyone. Like they were announced, and now all of the effects are trickling down to us little people, us little artists, in the shape of, I'm getting emails from licensing clients, either ones that I've never talked to before that I'm pitching that are responding, or existing ones. And they're not saying no, but they're saying, we don't know. Hold off. We're in the middle of a bit of a crisis right now. Things are kind of chaotic and confusing, and we don't know what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. The majority of, maybe the majority, I don't know. Let's just say a lot of my licensing clients that make products that my art goes on, where do they make those products? In China.
Yep.
How much is the tariff on China right now, or from China? 145%. So that means every time I design art and they put it on, they try to put it on a product, and it's manufactured in China, and they want to get it shipped back to them or anywhere else. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I hope.
Right.
There's an extra 145% cost tagged onto that.
Right.
And so the companies are like, do we raise our prices? Do we raise them to the consumers? Right now, they're just like, we don't know.
Right. And let's do some math really quickly, right? So let's say that, and it's going to be somewhat inaccurate just because I don't do math well in my head. But so Carrie, if a product comes in and that product's cost to make is $10,
mm-hmm.
when it hits our shores, it immediately becomes $20 and let's say 45 cents. Because again, $24.50. That's what it'll become. $24.50.
Your math is way better than mine. I can't even do that. So,
so $10 to produce it. But, and I'm going to pull out my calculator. Let's just see if I'm right about that.
It sounds right to me. It's definitely more. It's a lot more.
So it's a $14.50 on top of the $10.
Yeah, you got
so
it.
I was right. So $10 to produce it. The tariff cost is $14.50. So that means before markup, it is now $24.50 as an expense to the brand.
Yeah.
Okay. So my $10 tennis shoes are now $24.50 before I ever put them on the shelf. So if I want to now sell them, I have to mark up on top of that. Now that's a really low cost item. However, think about your $50 pair of jeans or, your $100 pair of jeans, now actually I was thinking about my printer ink. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I have a commercial level printer. I have a Pixma 200, right, from Canon. My ink costs $100 right now.
Oh my God.
So, and I am sure.
What does it normally cost?
No, I'm saying it's $100 right now.
Okay.
So like with the tariffs, I'm looking at $240.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, I haven't verified this, but I'm assuming it's manufactured in China because that's where everything is manufactured.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm actually, I have quickly ordered ink, even though I don't need it right now to get a pre-tariff price. But the next time I need to order ink, unless these tariffs go away, it's more than double. Like my costs have gone up just as an independent artist to buy printer ink.
Yep. Yeah,
right?
It's crazy. It's mind-blowing and like shocking. I mean, really, this is really shocking. I never would have imagined something like this happening. I mean, I guess I should have seen it coming, but it's affecting all kinds of stuff. So even like my royalties on print on demand sites have been cut in half because, they're basically, they produce, I put the product on their site and mock it up on a product, and then they order it from China and then ship it from there. And that means that they have to recoup that money somehow. And unfortunately, as an artist, they're actually recouping part of the money from me, not all of it. They're also raising the prices with their consumers. So what does that mean? It means I'm going to sell less because they cost more. Who's going to want to pay for it? And also it means my royalties, where I used to get $5 for a t-shirt, now I get like $2.
Right.
Which is it's really scary. I mean, this is, I hate to sound like a doom and gloom person right now, but this is terrifying.
Well, yeah. I mean, not, I've said before, I have a full-time job, but, so like but that doesn't mean I'm not feeling the hit. And I'll talk about my stories in a second. But like, if you're solely reliant on your art, this has got to be nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those like trickle-down effects, I think, that like nobody was thinking about when it came down to go to the polls. And I'm just going to leave it there for that. But, this is one of those things that, you're not thinking, oh, well, my royalties are going to go down because we're going to put.
Who would imagine that?
Something. Right. But, because you're not thinking about what, and this is why we need to do a whole episode on just royalties, because people don't think about the fact that, this is a product that's being produced and you're getting a percentage a lot of the times.
And it's a percentage of the wholesale cost, most likely, not always, but very often it's not the retail price.
Right. And so that's a whole, then you have to get into the whole concept of keystone pricing and all of that. And, so Carrie, I think that, these are things that people don't think about, like our licensing partners are going to experience higher costs.
Yeah.
So where are we going to see those prices? Our royalty rates, for sure. But, and even if they don't drop the percentage, even if, let's just say, like, they keep the royalty percentage static, their costs are going up, and they're going to have to balance how much they hit the consumer with that.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're going to try to balance that out. But no matter what, that comes down to lower royalty checks. Right.
Yeah. And, I have to say, I don't blame these companies for doing that, because they're not doing it to be stingy. They're just trying to make these numbers match. And, they are businesses, so they have to meet their bottom line. And I certainly don't fault, a lot of these print on demand companies for doing that, because Otherwise, they're going to lose money. And a lot of
Right.
these print-on-demand companies have been, already struggling to begin with before this even happened. So,
Right.
yeah, it's just that, this episode reminds me a little of our Other People's Platforms episode, because yet again, here we are talking about relying on other people, relying on other companies, and also not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. But to that effect, so my story, and I think you have another one, but I'll tell my first story really quickly. My story is, so I have an Etsy shop now, and I am building out product line or whatever. And so bomber jackets are a thing for me. I love bomber jackets, right? And
Me too.
so, yeah, so I have been sourcing places and getting samples. And so I found one that I really loved. It was kind of elevated in style. It was buttons instead of a zipper, and it had like a lot more flexibility in the design, and you could do all these cool things. And they were produced overseas, not China, and I forget off the top of my head exactly where. But I got an email. So I'd done the whole thing. I planned the line, all the stuff, getting ready, got an email from them. With all the confusion, sorry, we've decided we are just not shipping to the United States anymore. Done.
Oh my God. And you know what? You notice they said not to the United States. So if you lived somewhere else, so we're getting punished for
Yep.
living in the United States because everyone's pissed at us.
Yeah. And you know what? I couldn't blame them, but I was just like, that's
Yeah.
like 2 months of work. That was 2 months of work.
Ugh.
And at this point I've abandoned it because I was not satisfied with the quality that I could get elsewhere. So I'm not going to sell that.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that my prices were going to go up anyway, but like I wasn't satisfied. So I'm not going to go with an inferior product just because I can't get what I wanted. It means I'm not doing it now, period.
Yeah.
I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
So,
For now, just in case. I mean, you never know,
Yeah.
but at least you did the work. So if you do decide to turn that switch on, then
Right.
and they do ship to the United States. I mean, I like to think that this is temporary, but it has to be. I mean, everything is temporary. Life is temporary. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know how long it's going to last. And that's that uncertainty that, for everyone out there, I'm sure, you're all feeling this in one way or another. And I just want to remind you that the reason we do this podcast is because you are not alone. There are thousands of other artists feeling this way right now. And we're all just trying to figure out how to weather this storm without, losing all of our income and, not being, I don't even know, like what's going to happen. Go to another job or go to another career. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? I'm not going to go there yet.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk solutions. We'll talk about what we're doing, but I have another story, Carrie. Did you have another story?
Please tell me your story. I'm all about hearing your stories.
So my other story was as my listeners may not realize because of the lag in when we record from when we release, but I have switched my niche. So I am not focusing on patterns as much anymore. They're more secondary, and I am focusing on food and beverage illustration. And so I've been pitching all of that and having a good time with it. Well, I had a job lined up and it was going to be really fun. And it was, this nice commission. And then I got all of our costs just went up. So we're putting that particular project on hold. Maybe we'll come back. Maybe we won't, and I was like, well, well, okay.
It's just like it's like everywhere you turn, you're like, okay, let me try this. Oh, there's a brick wall there. Let me try this. Oh,
so like that was a commission that I lost just because, and it was for a champagne bar. And so
that sounds so fun.
Yeah, it would have been great, but it's like,
don't people need champagne now more than ever? I mean, liquor stores like kick ass during the pandemic, and liquor stores do really, really well when everything's going to shit. So
very true, very true. But at least the email that I got was our costs have gone up, and in this market of uncertainty, we are being conservative.
Well, and champagne it's hard to get drunk on champagne. So
very hard to get drunk on
what you need to do is find like a liquor store that needs some work. I'm serious.
Right.
Because they're probably doing great business right now. Even if they do have import costs, it's like they're still making sales. And if they raise the prices, people are still going to buy their products.
Yeah, very true. Very true. But I think that's kind of like, coming back to like tariffs, when I think one of the biggest sources of confusion, Carrie, is that people think that somehow it's a tax that the other country pays. It's not. It's a tax that our businesses pay here in this country. And it's to discourage us from using items from whatever country that tariff is on.
Yeah.
And like I can't remember which podcast I was listening to because I listened to a shit ton of them, but it was either Apple News Today or NPR because that's kind of where I get all of my podcast news from. There was a small business owner they were talking to who was a vendor for Target, and she was saying that Target had like canceled a $70,000 order. Right.
Oh.
Yeah, because she was overseas. And so they were going to have to bring in her product. And she was like, or not, I take that back. She wasn't overseas, but she manufactured in China.
Okay.
So, yeah. And so they were like, no, like, we're just canceling the order. They're just canceling right and left. I mean, it was just really sad because, this is a small business who happens to be a vendor for Target. So she doesn't have the cushion and the leverage that the Target corporation has, and she's like, I don't know if I'll be in business in 6 months, know?
Yeah. And I guess the reasoning, or maybe if I want to be naive, maybe the reasoning was, we should just do everything here in the United States. But it takes years to build that kind of infrastructure, and turning off a switch like that, or a faucet, turning off those floodgates. I mean, that gave nobody any time to like adjust or plan or anything. So, well, I have sort of stories, but my stories are going to be more like how I'm handling it. And, so my main story would be what I kind of said already is, I'm hearing back from companies that they are either, a few of them have laid people off because they're like, we have to save money in many other ways. But a lot of them are just like, don't send us any art right now because we can't do anything with it, because we can't put it on any products, because we can't afford to import any of the physical products that it's going to be produced on, because it's coming from China, which is where a huge amount of them are coming from. But on the bright side, so this entire episode isn't super depressing. Maybe I don't know why. I mean, I feel like obviously I will allow myself to wallow in my own whatever. But our tagline, which is, it's okay to be cranky. In the meantime, keep creating.
Right.
In the spirit of that, I, first of all, have not let this stop me from drawing. And I don't want it to stop any of you, because yes, of course, we love to make money from our art, but we also make art because we love art and it makes us happy. And what a better stress reliever, right? So I have an Etsy shop as well. And a lot of my products are print on demand. I'd say most of them are, and they're from Printify. I think Printify is my primary partner. Printify does not print all of their products in China. In fact, I'd say the majority, like the Bella Canvas shirts, the t-shirts, the mugs, a lot of their stuff is printed in the United States. And the cool thing about Printify, if I could plug them for a second, because I do really love working with them as a company. They have so many providers. So if you have a product and you realize that, and I'm sure they'll tell you, I mean, they are sending updates. Oh, this is produced in China. You can go and find another print provider through Printify,
right? Or
find another product. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the kind of roadblock that you're experiencing if you're doing art licensing right now. So there are other alternatives, and Printify already had those in their system. So they don't have to go crazy and hire all these people to like find these new company. Nope, they already had all that stuff in place.
I use Printify too. Yeah, I use Printify too, Carrie. And in fact, you can filter inside of when you're looking for products. You can filter to say, I want US, based. Because honestly, at this point, I'm looking just for US printing, because if it's coming from overseas in any capacity, it's going to be tariffed, unless you dig in to find out if you're accepted. So like, for instance, Janine Van Gool just was mentioning that for now, at any rate, the magazine is exempted. So like, she is not facing, like, we're not facing tariffs on Uppercase Magazine coming into the United States.
Yeah.
So,
And she's in Canada, right?
She's in Canada. Yeah. So like if there are some exemptions. So like if you're doing, I think electronics at some capacity are exempted on the China tariffs right now. I don't know the details of all of that. That's, a research project for you if you want to go out there and do that. But if your product is exempted, then okay, you're okay. But if not, print providers like Printify and Printful have merged, so I'm assuming that some of this is true on Printful as well. But I haven't been on their side of things. You can filter for U.S. printing or choose a specific locale that you want to get your product from.
Yeah, and I'm going to add too that probably my best-selling product in my Etsy shop just so happens to be my Reach for the Stars cat butt magnet, which, guess what? I ordered all of them and I have them sitting here in my house.
So, Karen,
and I mailed them myself. So, the first thing I did was when I heard about the tariffs, I immediately changed the Etsy listing title. What?
I'll say order more.
I did. No, I did. Well, the thing is, they're in the United States.
Cool.
So I already use not only do I use a US based printer and already did, so all my photos will be the same. It's the same products. They're a union shop. Nice. Coming from film, and I'm still in a union, like the film union, I'm used to working with union print shops. So if I do work with a printer that's like a local or, a print shop that's not like a print on demand company, I always seek out union shops where they don't overwork their laborers and all that stuff. And they use very responsible, business practices or whatever. So they already produced in the United States. So the very first thing that I did immediately was I ordered more, and my price had not gone up. And that's amazing. And of course it didn't, because they're in the United States and I'm in the United States. I also changed my Etsy listing title and I added shop with confidence, I added US based seller to the title. And then in the description, I added shop with confidence. This product is designed, produced, printed, and shipped from the United States. And I only ship to the United States in my Etsy shop anyway, at least my products that I mail myself, because I don't want to deal with international USPS.
Right.
So that has been to my advantage. My sales have not slowed down.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I have switched a lot to downloadable prints in my Etsy shop as well.
Yeah, you don't have to ship those at all.
I have to ship it. No, and you can get them specifically for my overseas clientele.
Right.
That way, if you want my art, you can just come download it and print it yourself. And that way you're not having to worry about, shipping costs. You're not having to worry about any, not the print on demand, any of that. It's just here, download it.
Yeah.
And go forth and conquer and have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, now is the time. If you've ever been toying with the idea of doing digital downloads of any kind, like calendars or, greeting cards or anything, you don't have to ship those. So
exactly. And also, I mean, from a business perspective, downloadables are like high profit margin, low effort, because you've drawn it once. And then it's infinitely downloadable. So, you can sell it I sell mine for $10. So, other than the Etsy listing fee.
Yeah. And the cool thing is Etsy also has an automated system where you don't even have to do anything. When you make a sale, it automatically sends them the file. Yep. So you don't have to do anything.
Exactly.
That's really nice.
Super easy. So for my art, I went that direction to kind of get out of print on demand, because I was also, my Etsy shop's relatively new. So I was also still exploring, did I want to, do gelato and do clay and all this other stuff. And I do have this printer that I could easily print it myself, but I'm not printing it and shipping it. I'm too lazy for that. So I, in the end, decided that I'm just going to experiment with downloadables and see how that does. So that's where I'm at with that.
Nice. Well, it's very smart. I mean, that's a really good long-term solution, and you have complete control over that too. So, it's not like licensing. That's the reason I'm starting to teach Etsy school in the graphics gang.
Yeah.
Because, Etsy is slowly becoming one of my favorite platforms because I have the eyeballs because it's Etsy, but I have so much more control
Mhm.
and say in like what goes on there, what it looks like on the product, what the pricing is. It's not like beholden to the business model of another print on demand company. And granted,
Mhm.
Etsy is someone else's platform, but I feel like it's the middle ground, the best of both worlds, where you
Yeah.
have the most amount of control, but you still have the exposure. So you don't
Right.
have to do all your own, marketing and advertising. So
Right. And I think if, that's something for designers and artists to think about in this era of tariffs and honestly the uncertainty, because I think on the one hand you have the fact that the tariff exists, that's difficult to deal with, but then on the other hand you have the uncertainty. Is it going to stay that way? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Is it being
mhm,
paused? Is it not being paused?
right.
It's like you can't make plans, you can't make decisions. To case in point, which is why that one partner was like, "We're just not even doing this anymore. Fuck
Yes,
you,
that's what a
United
lot of
States."
mine are. Yeah, I know, which sucks. But yeah, you're like, oh, because
Right?
nobody know. I mean, it could change tomorrow.
It could, and that's part of the problem. But my original point, Carrie, was that I think like for instance, I'm now on Fi, right? So like Fi is kind of this weird hybrid between print on demand and curated work like marketplace. So like you can kind of go at it both directions. But one of the reasons that I specifically was willing to go and be a Fi artist is they make it very plain. They ship, if you're in the United States, they are printing in the United States. If you're
Nice.
if you're overseas, they're printing overseas. So they're printing in both places so that their costs are more manageable. They're not shipping overseas. They have printing here in the United States. So that was another, as I was exploring where I wanted to put my art, one of the factors that went into my decisions was, is this printed and shipped from overseas, or is there United States printing? And I think unfortunately this is where we have to put our business hats on and be less artist and
Hmm.
more business
Yeah.
manager, because now you really have to spend time in your research. It's not just enough to go, hey, I want to be, Redbubble is great for stickers. Let me get on Redbubble. Now you have to consider, where is Redbubble printing that?
Hmm.
What
What are the royalties going to
what are
be
the royalties?
today? Right.
Exactly, and you have to make these decisions that are more economically minded than you would have just, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So I noticed you've been saying my name a lot, and I
I'm
need to remember
trying.
to do that. So Tony, I also wanted to share with you and everyone too. So when this whole thing started happening, I'm never going to abandon art licensing. I do
Mhm.
still love it, and it is really satisfying. And I have a lot of my art licensing partners and I are still going strong. So it's not like every single one of them has dried up. It's just a few. Some of them are bigger than others. But one of the things, my first thought, other than changing US based seller to my Etsy listing and ordering more magnets, was what else can I do, uh, that's still creating art and, feeding my soul by drawing, but is going to maybe weather this storm a little bit longer. And it's funny. I mean, I had been toying with the idea of doing editorial illustration before all of this happened.
Yeah.
I started discovering what it was and being like, oh, I didn't know that was its own thing. And ooh, I love all this stuff. So I'm not pivoting because I'm not abandoning stuff. I'm just basically adding yet more to my plate because I somehow love to do that. But so I created an editorial illustration portfolio because you know what I said? It may be hard to get products in China, but you know what? There will always be news.
Very true.
And somebody's got to, and of course, I know some of these places use AI, but you know who doesn't? I hope they're listening. The New
I
Yorker
knew you were
and
going to
the
say
New
that.
York Times, because they do. They lift up artists. They give the artist credit. They call them out in the text of the article in their emails. It's not just like a little signature that you can't read. So,
Yeah.
and of course, there are tons and tons of other places that do that. So I thought to myself, well, I can draw pictures and I can draw them in my style. And I can think about maybe drawing, instead of drawing flowers and kitties and cat butts, maybe I should draw like, some stuff that has a more narrative feel to it.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm building up that portfolio and pitching, and my agent is over the moon happy because I've been working with this agency. They're so amazing and so wonderful. But a lot of my art that they're trying to pitch is more licensee type art and less, freelance illustration type art. So I think they've been having a hard time trying to market me to people, and now they're going to have an easier time.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see where this goes, but I'm excited and I'm having fun.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because you and I had both at the turn of the year, we're talking about, we were switching or, or not switching, but like, shifting our attention away so much from pattern design and licensing, those types of images into, for me, food illustration. So for me, patterns are notoriously hard to license.
Yep.
A lot of, that's something that's not really put out in all of the dream building that goes on for our industry.
Yeah.
But they are notoriously, why? Because I think it's only 20% of the companies that are putting out these types of products are accepting submissions from independent artists. I think that's 20% is the correct statistic. So it's not 100%, it's 20%. So that means the thousands of people that are taking immersion and all of the courses and going out there and building the dream of service pattern, we're all competing for those same 20%, right?
Yeah.
So is it saturated? I'm not going to say that, but it is difficult.
Yeah.
So like, Golden Coil, they're talking about thousands of entries, surface, Janine got it like over 900 entries just for the surface pattern guide, so, for 100 slots, 900 people submitted.
Yeah.
So that means for every one chosen, 9 people got turned down.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, this is very competitive. They're hard to sell. And for me, with my limited time, I was just not interested in competing for that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
So to speak.
It's hard.
It's very hard. And when it came down to the nitty gritty and I analyzed all of my licensing deals, not a single one of them was for a pattern. They were all for illustrations. So I said, you know what, this is maybe the universe saying something to me. And so a friend of mine runs this organization called the Finishing School for Modern Women.
Ooh, I love that name.
It's very cool. And I think her tagline is something like "Not Your Mother's Etiquette School" or something. I can't remember her tagline, but all of her courses are about female empowerment. So it's like how to negotiate your salary and how to like public speak and stuff like that.
Oh God, we need more of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so, but she was doing this course about Ikigai, which I was like, what is that? So I looked it up a little bit, and it's basically kind of like this Japanese methodology for kind of like figuring out where your passions and your skills overlap.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, well, let me think about that, because I was like disillusioned with, pitching patterns that were going nowhere when my hard data was showing me like that wasn't the right direction for me anyway. And so I started looking at like, what do I love? Which anyone who knows me knows it's food and drink, right? Mm-hmm. Coffee, alcohol, and food. Like that's my trifecta. and then of course drawing, and art. So it made kind of like sense. It was like one of those light bulb, like, well, why didn't I think of that before? Moments of, well, let me give food illustration a try. And so I've been building out that portfolio. I switched my niche on Illustrators for Hire. Which was funny because like almost immediately upon switching my niche, I got a call, like I got sent a request. I got an art call. I got all kinds.
Oh my God. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, my niche only went public 2 weeks ago. So
wow, that's fast.
Yeah. So it's been great. It's been great. So where am I going with all of this, Carrie? I think where I'm going with this is think about that in your practices, right? Like, okay, we all know what like licensing, like floral pattern, all of these things are evergreen, and in no way are Carrie and I telling you to stop doing it.
Yeah.
But we are saying, what other directions can you look at that maybe will, maybe now is the time to look at freelance clients. Maybe now is the time to look at another niche, another industry that you could get into that will, take the pressure off of you if all you're doing is patterns or trying to license, fabric or something like that.
Yeah. Very smart. No, I agree. I think that's Tony, that is very good advice. And I am really excited for you because I've seen your food and drink illustrations. And, I was saying earlier, there will always be news. Well, you know what? People got to eat. People want to drink.
People want to drink.
And people need coffee. So
very true, very
there
true.
is a market for that. And, there are still magazines, there are still online magazines, there are still books that are coming out, cookbooks, all kinds of things. So that is really relevant. Yeah. I mean, it's not that you can't license a floral pattern. It's just that there are so many floral patterns out there. And, if you really, really want to keep doing patterns, I don't even know if I would discourage everybody from doing patterns. But what I would say is think about who is going to buy this pattern, and why don't you go ahead and strike off your list a lot of the ones that manufacture their products in China. And think about who else, if I were making a pattern in a niche, maybe it's flowers, but maybe it's like flowers and I don't know, shoes like Crocs or something. I don't know. I'm getting a little wacky now. Or like flowers and cat butts, whatever. But think about, well, if I made this pattern, maybe they could use it, or I could take the motifs from that pattern, and instead of making them into a repeat pattern, make them into an illustration that could be used for a book cover.
Right.
Or because, books are still going to come out. They may be online books. I mean, it's not, that industry isn't completely dead. It's just hard to sell art right now, unless that art, and the reason is because disposable income and consumer confidence are getting lower. And that happens. I mean, that's cyclical. I don't even know if that's tariff related. I mean, it is, but it's also, that just happens. But people are less likely to spend money on indulgent, splurgy things. Like the champagne bar, maybe that's a little indulgent and splurgy. But, maybe think about, instead of thinking about, glamorous stuff, think about, well, what's something practical, right? Like, what are the practical, people are still buying stuff.
Right.
It just, they're more likely, food packaging, right? Like people have to eat.
Right.
So just start thinking about, what you can do, what you really love. I love that ikigai concept. I guess mine would be, I'm really opinionated about the news and politics. So I like drawing stuff like that. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I think that's really smart. And you have a market for your food and drink illustrations.
Yeah.
As more than just art too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think, Carrie, that it's a little awkward trying to say your name all the time, but it was good feedback.
Yeah. I will say this, like there's another podcast that I listen to that I should shout out because I love them so much, Karen and Georgia, but nobody can tell them apart either. And I'm like, you know what? Like, it's okay. I definitely appreciate the feedback, but I'm going to forget. And I feel weird constantly saying your name. So
I'm
sorry.
doing the best I can. It's okay. So, and now I've kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So, I think, and I am in no way trying to discourage people from doing patterns. I think what I'm trying to say though, is that if you're seeing, those opportunities are shrinking, or, what's already hard is getting harder, this is the time to take the risks.
Yes.
If there's another type of illustration you've been thinking about, give it a shot, do it.
Yeah. Now you've got some space to do it.
Right. Like you literally have nothing to lose in that sense. To carve out a little bit of time, try something new, like my freelance practice has not been impacted, which is great. Yeah. I mean, I've lost some licensing deals, but okay. What I'm saying? But but my freelance practice, if anything, the indicators are that it's going to grow. And so this might be the time though, to also, especially my trend followers, to look at like, where might you shift your focus? Like for instance, like cats and dogs, Carrie, are evergreen. Like,
I know.
Right? Cats and dogs are evergreen. I'm not interested in drawing a cat or a dog, but like, cause I was also looking, like doing some research on that, when I was looking at like my Etsy shop and kind of thinking about what I wanted to do. And, you know, and that's kind of when I felt like I was still a little bit on the fence about switching into food and beverage. But then as I was doing this research, it was like, oh, like food and beverage is kind of evergreen. Like,
For
and I was
sure,
like,
yeah.
oh, well, like, all right, there's like the final seal on that. I'm definitely going to do it. But, you know, there are things out there. In fact, Etsy might have been where I saw the Etsy trend. I don't know about like their trend report about like what's selling. Like, so wall art is selling really good on Etsy right now. And
Which is surprising. I'm like, how outdated. I mean, that to me seems like a luxury, but maybe not.
well, again, you know, who knows? Maybe it's like me where they're down. Like most of the art I have bought. In fact, the Toulouse-Lautrec on my wall back there, I have the Chat Noir for everybody who can't see what I'm pointing at. I bought that as a download on Etsy.
Oh, nice.
And then I printed it out myself and framed it. So, and well, in fact, I already had the frame from a show that I had done. So I think I spent $3 to get that, you know, total, not including the frame. Frame probably cost me $5 wholesale. But, you know, so like that's how I got that, was downloaded off of Etsy as a high, you know, a high resolution image. So.
Yeah. No, those digital downloads are really smart. Digital download tools too. Like people are still going to create art. So I just thought of this, and I don't know, Tony, tell me if you think this makes sense. But you know, when times are tough and people's belts are getting tightened with money and things like disposable income, you have to think about, and in your own life too, and in my own life, I'm thinking about wants versus needs. That's a constant conversation I'm having with myself. I go to the grocery store and I'm pretty disciplined. You'd be surprised, but I am really disciplined about not going crazy. And, you know, I typically don't shop at Trader Joe's because I end up coming home with just snacks and being like, wait a minute, I don't have any meals in this these bags. But you know, you think about, well, a lot of people, the broad consumer, you know, out there in the world right now is having that conversation with themselves, whether it's because they got laid off or they're struggling or their art licensing clients are drying up or whatever. Everyone is going, what are my wants? What are my needs? And if you just ask yourself, well, what are needs? Okay. Food, drink, hello, need. We can't stop. We can't all become, you know, like, what is that called? The sunlightarians or whatever, the people that say they survive only on sunlight and air.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Oh, it's so, don't even bother looking it up. It's crazy. It's like really weird. But anyway, but you know, we all need to eat. We all like to drink, but even, you know, just beverages like whatever, coffee.
Right.
But also cats and dogs. Like we're not going to let loose all of our pets on the street. You know, they're in need. Children, babies, you know, like everybody loves their children and wants to like have, you know, pictures of them up on their walls or whatever, or maybe a painting or a portrait. So just think about like a news, again, a need. People definitely need news right now, but just think about the same things that you're asking yourself when you go to the grocery store. What do I want? What do I need? That's what your recipients of your art are also asking themselves, the very end customer. So when you're creating something, think about who is buying this and think about them having that same conversation and what do they need? What is indispensable to them? And that's what you want to, you know, start trying. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I think this is the thing to understand. And I just want to throw this out there. And this is not specifically a piece of advice, but it's more of a philosophy that I think that everybody should have, which is you are an artist no matter what you are doing. As long as you are creating art. So if that means this, you know, your practice has been impacted to the point where you decide to go get a part-time job for a little while, you're still an artist.
No shame in that.
Absolutely.
Shame.
You know, like if this is the time, you know, where, you know, you are you know, decide that, you know, I'm going to take a sabbatical because I got to pay my bills. You're still an artist. God damn it. Yeah. So like, you know, like you're never not an artist just because, you know, maybe you're not creating a new drawing every fucking day. You know what I'm saying? So like, no matter what you have to do to get through this period, if your practice is being impacted, you are still an artist.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for saying that. And it's so true and so encouraging. I will tack onto that. Also, if you're like me and you struggle with depression and anxiety, also just tell yourself, give yourself a little encouragement. You're also not a failure. This is not your fault. This is happening to all of us, and it is outside of our control, and we're all just doing the best we can. So if you have to stop drawing for a while or just walk away because it's making you crazy because you're like, I don't know who's going to buy this. There is no shame in that. This is not on you. You are not a failure. Come back to it later. Take a break. It's overwhelming and it's tough, but you are still an artist, even if you aren't creating art for a while. Someday you might want to come back to it, and I hope you do.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
In fact, I posted a quote recently. I might not get it exactly right, but it was the essence of the quote was, to be an artist in and of itself is a success. It's impossible to fail as an artist because to simply be one is a success.
Oh my God, I love that. That's gonna make me cry. That's so good.
Yeah, and that's why I had to post it, because I thought that was just so fundamental. I've said it again and again and again, that whenever you are creating, whatever form that takes, and I mean that literally, I mean that if you tried a new recipe and you gave it to a friend to taste, that is an act of courage, and when we're talking about the expressive arts, whether that's, visual art or writing or dancing or anything like that, you're giving a piece of your soul when, and I still say that's true, from your cat butt to the coffee cup that I wrote, that I drew, these things may not seem like, like they're not, like, it's not quote unquote high art that's going to go hang in the Getty or anything like that. But, it's like, the bottom line is that I put that out there. I had the courage to create it and put it out there with the possibility that some fucker online is going to say something negative about it. You know what I'm saying? That's
that in itself is also an act of courage. Yeah. Well, and just creating it, even if you don't show it to anybody, I mean, taking that risk,
right?
Even if you just do it for yourself, is an act of courage, and you should congratulate yourself for that, because, not everyone is willing to be that brave.
I agree with you completely. All right, let's wrap it up, Carrie. What's your final advice for everybody?
My final piece of advice is, I'm going to just use that, what is it, Ikigai? I don't even know. I'm picturing, I've seen it before in presentations. It's picture two circles, put in one circle what you love or what you're passionate about, and put in the other circle what is going to be successful or will sell, and look for the overlap. I guess my advice would be, step back, take this time to take a breath, forgive yourself, give yourself a moment to take a breather, and then re-examine, if you're struggling or you're finding some brick walls like we are, just look at what else can I experiment with? Look at it as a fun adventure.
Right.
And try not to, beat yourself up too much or be too negative. And my last piece of advice, I guess I'm giving more than one, is everything is temporary. This is my depression mantra. For people who struggle with depression, if you understand the concept of things being temporary, impermanence, that means it makes a world of difference, because it sometimes feels like this is going to go on forever, and it ain't.
Nope. All right. So I would wrap it with this. This is the time to be flexible. So, my finance guy always tells me that when the market goes down, you don't stop buying, you keep buying, so that when the market goes back up, you're going to get more return for your buck. And so I'm holding tight to that right now, but I refuse to look at my balances. But, so,
yeah,
but I would say that philosophy holds true here as well. Whatever you're doing that's been working for you, this isn't the time to walk away from it. It's not the time to abandon it, but it is the time to be flexible and maybe look at other areas that you could invest some time and effort into to see if that's going to bring you some returns. So just stay flexible. And, as Carrie said, it's all temporary.
Yep.
All right. I think that's a wrap.
If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we'd love it if you could rate and review us. Your support helps more people discover the show, and it keeps us going strong. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot.
I'm Tony.
And I'm Carrie. It's okay to be cranky.
In the meantime, keep creating.